For the record, this is a public meeting being conducted by the TCEQ, that's the Texas Commission on Environmental Quality. It's a public meeting on an application by Rancho Viejo Waste Management, LLC. It's an application for a municipal solid waste permit, and the proposed permit number is 2374. My name is Brad Patterson. I work at the TCEQ, and I'm the moderator for tonight's public meeting. My role is to keep the meeting moving as expeditiously as possible so we can cover as much territory as possible and give as many people who want to speak an opportunity to do so. I have a couple of quick announcements. The facilities are in the back corner from where I'm standing. The men's is to my left, the ladies is to the right. If you have a cell phone or a paging device with you tonight, please turn it off or put it into silent mode. We would appreciate that. As you came in tonight through the doors, we had a registration table set up. At that registration table, we had some sign-in sheets to register your attendance at tonight's public meeting. There was a place for your name, mailing address, a box to check if you want to be added to the mailing list for this application. There were also boxes to check if you wanted to provide comments at tonight's public meeting. If you didn't get a chance to register and would like to do so at this time, please feel free. Tonight's public meeting is being held at the request of Senator Judith Zaffirini, and it's my pleasure to announce that Senator Zaffirini is here with us tonight. And at this time, I'll turn the floor over to the Senator. Thank you.
Thank you, Brad. Thank you, Brad, for being here, and thank you all for joining us this evening for this public meeting having to do with the landfill application of Rancho Viejo. I'm so proud of this turnout because a public meeting always is an opportunity to speak out and to be heard. And I'm very proud that in my hometown of Laredo, there is such an interest in this particular project. I hope from the bottom of my heart that everyone listens carefully, asks thoughtful questions, and speaks out. But I hope that at all times, everyone will be respectful of every presenter, of every speaker, regardless of whether you agree or disagree. Always to be respectful and to give everybody the opportunity to speak out. I will be here throughout the meeting, and I too will be listening carefully. If you have questions, you can direct them to the representatives of Rancho Viejo or to the representatives of the agency. I'm here as your state senator and host. I will not be answering questions, but I will be listening and watching. Thank you, Brad, and thank you to the Texas Commission on Environmental Quality. Bienvenidos. Welcome to this public meeting.
All right. Thanks again, Senator Zaffirini. I did want to mention, too, that from the Senator's office, we have Krista Kyle and Sean Griffin. Okay. So at this time, I'll go ahead and talk a little bit about the format for tonight's public meeting. Tonight's public meeting will be held in three parts. The first part of the meeting, I'll introduce the representative for the applicant and then also the TCEQ staff that are here tonight. And I'll give each of them a chance to briefly explain their role in the process. After we go through the presentations, we'll begin the informal discussion period. The informal discussion period is an opportunity for members of the public to come up to the microphone, ask questions of either the applicant or TCEQ staff, and you'll get a response to your question tonight. The important thing to remember about the informal discussion period is that it does not become part of the formal record. It's just really an opportunity to exchange information regarding this application. The third part of the meeting is the formal comment period. That'll be your opportunity for the public to come up, submit their comments for the record that you want TCEQ staff and the commissioners to consider before making any final decisions on the application. So at this time, what I'll do is introduce the folks that are here representing the applicant, Rancho Viejo. We have C.Y. Benavides, Mickey Hellickson, H.C. Clark, Mike Oden, and Jeffrey Connor. At this time, I'll turn the floor over to Mr. Benavides. I'm sorry. And I'll let Mr. Benavides explain what this application is about.
Well, we'd like to start by thanking everybody. Welcome to the Casa Blanca Ballroom, and I'd also like to thank the Guerra family for their generous donation and allowing us to have this venue open to this community. As you know, this is a place that we've shared many, many decades of great politics. And I think we're excited to be here to present in front of you today. Before I start, there's been much question about who owns this company. So I'd like to ask the members that are present in ownership to stand up. It's my brother, Guillermo David Benavides, and Linda Cristina Alexander. And as far as partners, you know, we have our dad, which couldn't be here with us today. He's ill. But my mother's here. Linda, man, thank you for being here with us. Outside of that, I think there's an inherent responsibility in what we're trying to do and what we're trying to move forward on offering a project that is 37 years in the making. It is not by chance, nor by arrogance or just sort of business that we would like to create a landfill, but by necessity, by opportunity, and by having the proper location that has the proper logistics to connect for our community and for the region as well. Pescadito, over the last 7 years, has done everything required within our county, our state, and our federal government to get us to this point of the permitting process.
Okay, folks, please understand there are a lot of people in the room tonight. It's going to be a very long night, a very long meeting. We need to progress as quickly as we can. So to that end, I would ask you to please hold your applause so that we don't have any of those disruptions, and that we also refrain from demonstrating in a way that is disruptive to folks who are in the audience. So I appreciate you being here, but if you wouldn't mind taking your seats so that we can proceed with the public meeting.
It is our family's intention to create a facility that is science-based and has the opportunity to service this community indefinitely. There are certain limitations that exist with the current landfill that we have in Laredo, and we feel, frankly, that having just one other private resource for landfilling is not the best option for the community. Number one, it does affect every single person in your tax roll, collection, and the ability to service you. Some of you here are from rural Las Lomas. I know there's a lot of interest from people like you. I know Alex Obregon has worked real hard to try to get his message across, and it's a valid one. You know, why this landfill? Why this location? Well, ladies and gentlemen, today you will hear from the experts, and you yourself can ask in Spanish or English the hardest question you want. TCEQ is here and prepared to answer, as are these illustrious group of gentlemen here to my right. So once again, gracias por estar aquí con nosotros hoy. Let's try to make this a very smooth process. It's going to be a long night, but we want to be productive, and we will work hard to deliver the best message we can. God bless you all. Thank you.
All right. Thank you. Thank you. At this time, I'll introduce the folks that are here from the Commission on Environmental Quality. Again, my name is Brad Patterson. I work in the Office of the Chief Clerk at the TCEQ. Also from the Office of the Chief Clerk, we have Jim Fernandez, who's operating our sound and recording. We are making a recording of tonight's meeting as well as producing sound for the meeting. That's why it'll be important that anyone who speaks tonight needs to speak into a microphone. I've got a microphone for my use. TCEQ staff has a microphone. The Rancho VO folks have a microphone. And we've set up this microphone for the public to use as well. In order for you to be picked up on the recording, we'll need you to speak into a microphone. That's why it'll be important that we only have one person speaking at a time, and that if you do choose to speak, you'll need to be doing it into a microphone. Moving on, back at the registration table, also from the Office of the Chief Clerk, were Jesse Kaderka and Deanna Avalos. From the Environmental Law Division, representing the Executive Director is Anthony Tatu. From the Office of Waste, Dwight Russell, Galaya Key, Mamadou Balde, Chance Gooden. From the Office of Public Interest Counsel, Eli Martinez. From our Media Relations Division, Andrew Keese. I believe Andrew was in the back earlier. And then from our regional office is where our environmental investigators work out of. If you ever had a complaint or concern about any facility that the TCEQ regulates, you would be contacting our regional office. So from the regional office, we have Jaime Garza, Arnano Lanisi, and Victor Wong. At this time, what I'll do is I'll ask TCEQ staff that are here tonight. We'll start with Dwight. If you wouldn't mind just explaining your role in the technical review process at the TCEQ.
Thank you, Brad.
Hold it real close. Hold it real close, Dwight.
My name is Dwight Russell, and I'm the project engineer for this permit application. I'd like to present a brief overview of the permit processing procedure at the TCEQ. Now, when an application is received at the TCEQ, it first goes through an administrative review. The purpose of the administrative review is to determine that all the required parts of the application have been submitted. Once it has been determined that all the parts have been submitted, it's declared administratively complete. At that point, the technical review begins. Now, the purpose of the technical review is to ensure that the application adequately addresses all of the applicable regulations. The technical rules that apply to this application are found in Title 30, Chapter 330 of the Texas Administrative Code. Now, the application is reviewed by a review team that consists of a project engineer and a project geologist. On this project, I am the project engineer, and Mamadou Baldi is the project geologist. My role is in project management and in the evaluation of the facility design, operation, closure, and site drainage. Mamadou Baldi, again, is the geologist, and he's a licensed professional geoscientist in Texas. His role is to evaluate the site soils and geology, the subsurface investigation information, and the proposed groundwater and landfill gas monitoring system. In the technical review process, the review team reviews the application for compliance with applicable rules and prepares correspondence to the applicant on any noted deficiencies. The team also reviews any revisions made to the application. Now, a municipal solid waste application consists of 4 parts. Parts 1 and 2 contain the applicant information, general facility information, and facility siting information. Part 3 consists of the site development plan. Now, the site development plan contains information for the construction, monitoring, and final closure of the facility. Part 4 of the application is the site operating plan. The site operating plan contains the general operating procedures for the day-to-day operation of the facility. Now, in reviewing this application, we use checklists, agency procedures, and guidance documents to ensure that there's consistency in the drafting of the permit. These documents are available on our TCEQ website. Now, when an application is determined to meet all of the applicable rule requirements, it's declared technically complete.
All right, then, Dwight, if you'll pass the microphone to Anthony. Anthony Tetu is a staff attorney in the Environmental Law Division, and Anthony has some important information to impart tonight, so please give him your full attention. Thank you, Anthony.
Thanks, Brad. I just want to make sure everyone can hear me, even in the back. I wanted to just spend a minute and talk about where we are in the process for this application and how it's going to be moving forward. So, as Dwight mentioned, we're in technical review right now, and technical review has not been completed. I just wanted to clarify that because I had a few questions about that before the meeting started. So the MSW team is still looking at information that the applicant has submitted to us, and that also means that the comment period for this application is still ongoing. It is not ending tonight. I wanted to make that part clear. If the applicant provides adequate information and technical review is complete, if they answer all the concerns and questions that the MSW staff has, we will send out another notice letting everyone know that it's technically complete and giving you a deadline for public comments. Well, and the next thing I want to talk about is about those comments. You might be wondering, well, I've sent in comments, or I plan to send in comments or make formal comments tonight. What does the agency do with those comments? So we are obligated to look at all the comments that are submitted by the public, and we will be preparing a written response. We call that a RTC, response to comment. So everyone who submits comments and gets on our mailing lists, we will mail you a written response to all the comments. At that time, there will also be instructions sent out on how to request a contested case hearing. This application is actually is being continued from a previous one, so we actually already have some folks who are admitted as parties for a contested case hearing, but there will be an opportunity for more people to request to be part of that hearing. And that hearing is held before the State Office of Administrative Hearings. It's a little bit like a trial where both sides present their arguments as to whether or not the application does or does not meet our rules. And ultimately, there'll be a judge who issues a recommendation to the three commissioners of the Texas Commission on Environmental Quality, and there will be a decision made at that time. I know I glossed over that a little bit, so if you have questions about the process, feel free to ask them either during the informal question and answer period, or feel free to just come up and talk to me at the break, and I'll be happy to give you my contact information or answer any questions that I can at that time. Thanks.
Thank you, Anthony. If you wouldn't mind passing that on down to Eli Martinez. Eli Martinez works in the Office of the Public Interest Counsel, and I'll let Eli explain their role at the agency.
Good evening. My name is Eli Martinez, and as Brad just stated, I'm with the Office of Public Interest Counsel at the Commission. Just to explain a little bit about who our office is and what we do. We're a small group of attorneys that get involved in the process once a hearing, a request for a contested case hearing has been submitted to the Commission. At that point, we will respond to that hearing request and make a recommendation to the Commission as to whether or not the person requesting the hearing has standing and whether or not relevant issues are raised that can be determined in a court. It's a little bit early in that process right now, but we wanted to get a head start, understanding what some of the issues are, surrounding this permit and its preliminary approval, and getting familiar with those concerns, and so that as this process continues, we'll be prepared to be able to understand the public concerns and do a better job of responding. If a hearing request is granted by the commissioners, we will also participate in those proceedings. We will ensure that all of the parties' procedural rights are protected. We do not work under the direction of the Executive Director's Office, and we did not participate in the original review of this application and permit. So we'll be taking a fresh look at whether or not this proposed permit does meet all the rules and regulations that are applicable to it. After the hearing is concluded, we will submit our own closing arguments and make a recommendation to the commissioners as to whether or not the application should be approved, modified, or denied. The final decision on that comes down to the three commissioners that work for the commission. If any of you request a hearing and are granted that hearing, you may find yourself in a world of legal proceedings having to deal with some processes that you're not familiar with. If you need to know what discovery is, what requests for disclosure are and how these things are submitted, or if you don't know what's next in the process, our office is also available as a resource to educate you on some of the procedural issues. We cannot give legal advice, and we cannot make any substantive suggestions as to you should pursue legally, but we are here as a resource for you if you have any questions about the process. And again, I appreciate everybody coming out here, and I look forward to hearing your concerns.
All right, thank you, Eli. So that does it for the first part of the meeting with presentations. Well, we're about to begin the second part of tonight's public meeting, which is the informal discussion period. As a reminder, during the informal discussion period, we'll ask folks to come up, ask questions related to the waste application, either of TCEQ staff or the applicant, and you'll get a response tonight. The statements that you make during the informal discussion period do not go into the final record, and they won't go to the commissioners prior to decision. Please hold your comments and your statements for the last part of tonight's public meeting. Real quick statement about the Q&A. We'll need to move as quickly as possible through the question and answer period. One, because we do have a lot of folks here tonight, and I want to give as many people a chance to ask a question as possible. Two, I did a quick count, and we've got over 50 people who signed up to give formal comments during the third part of the meeting. So that, 50 people speaking, if they took 3 to 5 minutes each, that's several hours right there of people just giving comments. So I want to move as quickly as possible through the Q&A. So to that end, we have some ground rules regarding the question and answer period. As a reminder, tonight is not a contested proceeding. I am not a judge. No decision regarding this application is going to be made at tonight's public meeting. This really is an opportunity for you to obtain information related to the application. During the Q&A, we're going to be looking for questions, and we can only address questions that are relevant to the decision that the TCEQ has to make on this municipal solid waste permit. And I know that there are a number of issues perhaps tangential to this application that you're concerned about, but for tonight's public meeting, we can only address, and TCEQ staff can only address, those matters that we have jurisdiction to consider when making a decision on this type of application. I'm not going to raise your hand, and I'm not going to call your name during this period. You don't have to raise your hand, and I'm not going to call your name during this period. I'm just going to ask if you have a question to come on up to the microphone that we've got set up for the public, ask your question and wait a response. If you have more than one question, that's fine. Just please go one question at a time. It's easier for us to understand the questions and respond to them. And I think it's also easier for folks in the audience to hear the responses if we just go one question at a time. After you've asked a question or two, I may ask you to take a break and give someone else a chance to ask their question. So just be aware of that. I would ask that when you come up to ask a question, please have the most important question that you want to ask ready in case we need to move on to somebody else. I'm going to echo some sentiments that Senator Zaffarini raised earlier, and that is to say that please be respectful of the process, respect everyone's right to have their own opinion. If somebody says something that you don't agree with, that's fine, but please don't boo or shout them down. Everyone who wishes to speak tonight will have an opportunity to do so, so you'll have a chance to come up and provide your concerns as well. So with that, we'll go ahead and get started. Again, I'm not going to call you up. You don't have to raise your hand. Does anyone have any questions related to this waste application for either TCEQ staff or the applicant? Coming up to the microphone. Y'all can line up. There's a lot of people here tonight, and it would be real helpful, again, to keep things moving as quick as possible. Yes, sir.
One of the questions that a lot of my fellow citizens are encountering is, will this landfill that's proposed bring in any further industrial waste from Mexico?
Yes, the application has requested authorization to take industrial waste from Mexico.
No, will it bring in more? Will it further increase the amount of industrial waste already coming into our community?
I don't know if it would or not. It's really outside of our purvey whether it would increase it or not. I don't know that.
Under the current standards on the application, the way it stands currently, accepting the hazardous waste that's coming in from Mexico, is it geologically the right location for this?
Go ahead, sure.
Well, I think that the answer to that question is, that's the geological location, or are you talking the geographic or the geologic?
Both.
Okay,
because
so
I understand that there's several hundred feet of clay that would contain a lot of water, and we wouldn't really have to worry about contaminating our 100-year floodplain.
Okay, and in terms of the geology questions, I think you can answer that, right, Mamadou? But in terms of the geographic issue, you know, where the actual landfill is located is not something that we have the authority to consider when we're reviewing the application. But as going to your question about geology, I think Mamadou's the best person to answer that.
If I understand your question, you are asking whether geologically this site is suitable for a landfill.
Correct.
Well, landfill may be a risk to aquifers. Aquifers are underground water reservoir from which people get drinking water and water for other purposes. The aquifer we have in this area, in the area of the landfill, is it's a minor aquifer. And that aquifer, we call it Jaguar-Jackson in the geologic literature. It is a minor aquifer compared to major aquifer. Major aquifers are capable of yielding a large amount of water for large cities and for large agglomerations. Minor aquifers are geographically less extended. They cover less area, less surface, and they yield less water in a general sense.
Hang on, Mamadou, hang on. Folks in the back, I'm hearing a lot of chatter from the back, and I'm having a hard time hearing, and I think that others may be having a hard time hearing too. So again, if you could please wrap up your conversations, or if you wouldn't mind going outside to continue talking, we'd appreciate that. And then Mamadou, if you don't mind, hold that microphone a little bit closer as you're speaking.
Sure. Well, to continue, what I was saying is this is a minor aquifer, and it is at least 300 feet below the deepest excavation of this landfill. And the separation between the two is mostly clay with a hydraulic conductivity, which geologists call permeability, which is extremely low. So risks are minimal to groundwater surface from this landfill.
All right, thank you. And
Thank you.
Those were good questions. Thank you. If you don't mind, if we could move on to someone else. Well, we got it. Yes, sir.
Hello, good afternoon.
You go ahead and hold that mic, pull that microphone. There you go.
My question is this area located in the 100-year flood plan?
Yes, the area is currently in the 100-year floodplain. Now the applicant has prepared a design for some berms and ditches that would take the area out of the 100-year floodplain, and they have applied to the Federal Emergency Management Agency and gotten a conditional letter of map revision, which the federal agency agrees that this is an acceptable way to take the area out of the 100-year floodplain.
Perfect, thank you.
Thank you. Yes, sir.
Yes, this is directed to legal counsel. I'm looking at the notice of public meeting, and it says the TCEQ executive director has completed the technical review of the application and prepared a draft permit, and also says he's made a preliminary decision. I understood you to say tonight the technical review is not over. This is not technically complete. Is that draft permit and preliminary decision been revoked?
Well, it hasn't been formally revoked, but it will be changed for sure because we are continuing the technical review, and we felt that it wasn't a good idea to try and cancel this public meeting at the last minute after we decided that we wanted to get additional information from the applicant. So that's why we went ahead and held the public meeting. And as I stated earlier in my presentation, assuming that the applicant provides additional information that satisfies the questions of the staff here, we'll issue another notice.
Okay. Well, it just seems like, counsel, that there ought to be a revocation of the preliminary decision and the draft permit, since we now know on August 4th they submitted a whole bunch of new documents that none of us have had a chance to review. So, but thank you.
Right, and we want to make sure you have that chance, Bruce. So, like I said, the public comment period is not ending tonight, and it'll be quite a while actually before that ends. And if you or anyone feels that there's additional time needed, you know, please just let us know.
Right. Well, yeah, thank you very much. I just wanted to make sure we understood the status of the draft permit and the preliminary decision, and it sounds like it's really not operative at this point. Is that correct? Correct. Thank you.
And Anthony, do I understand you to say that there is going to be additional notice for this application? So I just wanted to make the point then that if you want to make sure that you receive that notice in the mail, check your registration sheet that you gave us tonight. Check that box that says add me to the mailing list, and that'll make sure that you get future notices regarding this application through the mail. Also, anyone who comments on the application automatically gets added to the mailing list, so I just wanted to clarify that point. And again, I'm hearing a lot of chatter from the back. If y'all don't mind wrapping up your conversations or taking them outside, we would all appreciate that. Yes, ma'am.
Yes, thank you. Well, as a concerned citizen, I don't know if I'm asking the correct question at the right time, but this waste material, how is it going to be brought in? My understanding, if I read correctly, it was going to be distributed through the Kansas City Southern Railroad track or company. It's like on between 359 and 59. Is that correct?
So I understand your question to be how is the waste going to be delivered to the...
I might have read somewhere, or I guess on Pro 8 News or Laredo Morning Times, I'm not sure. How is it going to be brought in to the county?
Yeah, the application lists two ways that the waste can be brought in. One would be through the Kansas City Southern Rail, and another would be through trucks entering through Jordan Road from 359.
So a decision hasn't been made right at the moment as to how this is going to be brought in?
The exact amounts and where the material is coming from at this point has not been determined.
How it's going to be transported, okay.
Right.
My concern is that there was an incident back in 2012 through this railroad company, and in the area where I live, we needed to be evacuated immediately because one of the trains derailed. So that is my concern. If it's going to be brought in through that railroad company, that might be a possibility. So, you know, that is a major concern that we have in the area.
Yeah, and I appreciate you expressing that, and I would just remind you that's a good statement to make during the formal comment period as well. So I would encourage you to come back up during that time.
Okay, thank you very much.
Sure. Yes, sir.
Hello. So originally I had signed the petition opposing your project, mostly because the PERC team was kind of pretty quiet at that time. But now as the PERC team has kind of begun to scratch the surface, addressing some of our concerns, I'm in a position to change my stance. So really my question is, will your landfill be bringing in toxic waste? We've already established that it'll be hazardous, but I want to know if it's going to be toxic, and if so, what precautions, specifically what precautions are taken to ensure the safety of our community, our environment, and the security of our future?
Well, I think that's a misconception tied to the first question asked. So the gentleman asked if hazardous material was going to come into Laredo and come into our facility. The answer is no, and TCEQ can follow up with that answer as well. I think what the gentleman was trying to get at is that there currently is transfers of waste from Mexico that are hazardous. And so that's the misconception. This project or this organization is not seeking a hazardous permit. It is seeking a regular conditional MSW1 with an industrial 1, 2, 3, and 4 permit application.
I heard you mention toxic waste, though, and I guess there's a distinction between...
That's the word that's being thrown around by the opposing side.
Is TCEQ, is there a distinction in our rules or under the law between hazardous waste and toxic waste, and would they be able to accept, toxic waste?
As Mr. Benavides said, the application actually does not seek to receive hazardous industrial waste, but Class 1 non-hazardous industrial waste. Now, within that definition is the word toxic. Texas has a tiered system of classifying industrial waste. We have hazardous waste, which is the most toxic and most potentially harmful to the environment. Then we have Class 1 industrial non-hazardous waste, We have Class 2 industrial non-hazardous waste and Class 3 industrial non-hazardous waste. The Class 1 non-hazardous waste is certainly not as toxic and as harmful to the environment as the hazardous waste.
So you said not as toxic. On that point, what precautions will be taken to ensure our safety?
Thank you.
Go ahead.
Go ahead.
I said, what precautions will be taken to ensure the safety of the community and the environment, and ultimately the future?
I think the applicant should answer that.
Okay.
So
I can speak to that.
Okay.
In the application, the site operating plan, we have detailed procedures on how we're going to get permission. There's certain waste that are called special waste that we'll have to talk to the TCEQ and get specific handling instructions on how to manage that. And we have a detailed plan in the site operating plan that talks about how we go about that and the things that we'll do to make sure that the safety of the health and the environment. So we don't know what those materials are at this point in time. Should there become an opportunity, then that waste would be studied. It would be looked at, and we would develop specific plans if that's needed to make sure that that material is safely interred.
All right, thank you.
Thank you for clarifying.
Furthermore, just to add, the current landfill at the city of Laredo currently takes industrial 2, 3, and 4, including maquiladora waste from Mexico.
All right, thank you. Yes, ma'am. Go ahead and pull that down if you can. You can just grab the microphone itself, and there you go.
Okay, yes, good evening. Because of all the information being passed around, I also first understood that this project was for a toxic dump located in Laredo and would be hazardous to our environment and community. But as opposed to the current facilities that we have, my question is exactly how far is it from Laredo? How far is it from the nearest community? And is there any visual impact or negative environmental impact to the city of Laredo?
So the proposed facility itself, how far is it from Laredo? How far is it from, okay. Is that something that y'all can talk about?
Yeah, absolutely. It's about 18 miles from Laredo, depending on where you draw the line and the city limits, but typically it's 15 to 20 miles, certainly from downtown, it's 20 miles. The nearest community is Ranchitos Las Lomas, which is about 5 miles north of the facility. Other than that, the nearest structure, other than the ones Mr. Benavides owns, I believe is about a mile away. So impacts will be non-existent.
Did you have any other questions?
No, okay. That's all.
All right, thank you. Yes, sir. Then you can pull that microphone back up.
Good evening to all. Concerning environmental, I'm living here for 15 years. My question is the landfill could pollute water or ground around the area?
Well, the landfill is located in an area that the groundwater is very, very deep. There's a lot of clay between the bottom of the landfill and any usable water. It's very, very competent clay. The permeabilities are very, very low. So no, there's not going to be any impacts. And in fact, we're in such an arid location that even the generation of waters within the landfill are non-existent.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, sir.
Thank you so much. I'm here to kind of gather information. I know this gentleman was specifying the type of waste they'll be taking at this facility. There's coal ash included in what will be taken at this facility?
Yes, coal ash is an industrial non-hazardous material that could be accepted. There is no, that I'm aware of, there is no plans at this point. There's no markets or no contracts in place, but that is something that is required to be put into the application. Any waste that you feel like you could take, that is certainly a material that is could go here. The EPA passed rules last year that said that coal ash should go into a Subtitle D landfill, And that's exactly what we have. So if that material is available and needs a place to go, then he could accept it. And coal ash could be class 3 industrial waste. So it could be all kinds of things.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Yes, sir.
Hello. As earlier stated, you said does not seek.
Do you mind stepping a little bit closer to the mic?
You said as earlier, you do not seek to accept toxic waste. But in the future, could you accept toxic waste if asked to receive it?
All municipal landfills accept toxic waste. The things that you and I throw away every day.
I'm not speaking of other.
Hold on. Excuse me. Let's let him finish. Go ahead.
Yeah. Any municipal waste landfill accepts toxic waste because the things that you and I throw away on a daily basis are toxic. So yes, they will be. The city of Laredo takes toxic waste. Every municipal waste landfill takes toxic waste. If that material needs a place to go and it's class 1, again, that will be discussed with the state, and if there's handling procedures that need to be implemented, then that will be put in place.
Furthermore, I mean, some people don't realize how simple hazardous could be created. An apple, for example, the seeds within an apple contain toxic elements. So cyanide, to be exact, yeah. And so there's toxicity in everything. If you at your home collected 4 weeks of trash, put it in a room, at some point there's going to be a toxic element. Through the requirements in the process of what we're trying to achieve, toxicity in a trash can that we're creating in this landfill, we are building and foreseeing anything that we could bring and conducting and creating a scientific element as to create the proper enclosement, impoundment area for our project.
Yes,
okay.
Scientifically, but yet you did not answer my question. I said you do not seek to accept, but would you accept if asked to accept?
Well, I guess you're misunderstanding. So if you know, the Resendez trucking company brings a load of trash to the facility, no matter what kind of trash it is, at some point it will have a toxicity level. So you see what I'm coming from? I mean, at some point all landfills have that element. MSW1 or otherwise, you know. We are going to be providing a service to the area to collect trash.
You're not answering the question, though.
Well, I think that he's addressed.
Yes or no. He's not saying yes or no. He's saying maybe, could, woulda, shoulda.
Well, what I think I've heard him say is that the municipal solid waste that comes from homes, and I guess the type of waste that they would be accepting, have a certain level of toxicity to them. So, yeah, I mean, and again, if what I would say is if you either don't agree with an answer that you get tonight, that's what the formal comment period is for. That would be your opportunity to come up and state for the record what your objection is to the responses that you got.
Thank you so much.
All right, thank you. Yes, sir.
We get down to the short people.
There you go. Get real close.
Okay. My name is Paul Rivera. Not the Midnight Rider. Anyway, I'm an certified environmental engineer. I have a certificate of as an auditor as well. I have worked on environmental issues through the United States. And I have had the experience of working in hazardous waste facilities, several of them. One of them including, if you all remember, the Love Canal. Do you guys remember that?
Sir, do you mind if we could get to your question, though? We've got quite a few folks that are lined up behind you.
The question is this, that I think that we should, this project should definitely be closed up. That should not be taken up primarily because the issues have not been attended to. All the hazards that I know of that contain that are contained in the hazardous waste facility have not been addressed, and the people have got to be educated into what they're doing. I mean, if you really think that because you get a sample of soil so many feet down, you think that that's representative of the whole area, you're wrong, man. So what I suggest is this: don't process this project.
And I hear you making a series of statements that I would encourage you to come up during the comment period and make those statements. Right now, we're really looking for questions related to the application, though. So do you have any questions for either TCEQ staff or the applicant?
I don't think they can answer them anyway.
Okay, thank you. I'd invite you to come back up during the comment period then. Thank you. Yes, sir.
Hello, good evening. Gabriel Carranza, math instructor at Laredo Community College. Just a quick question. Around the area where this landfill wants to be constructed, what is the possibility of other growth around the area? I've been here in Laredo all my life. I've seen a lot of positive growth. Honestly, I don't see this as a positive growth. I know it is growing exponentially in the sense of the landfill waste throughout the nation. I know it's going to be brought here. My question is, I know we have a lot of young people here that would like to see water parks, would like to see possibly, HEBs, other things like that. What is the possibility, or what can you tell me about growth around that area?
And I just want to make a point from the TCEQ's perspective, the jurisdiction that we have, we don't really look at development around the facility or future development plans around the facility. So I don't want to spend too much time on this, but do you know anything about future plans for development around that area?
Well, actually, there is an element within the TCEQ rules that asks us and has us look at land use and land impact, including some of the trials that we had to work through with the Texas Department of Public Transportation. So for the infrastructure, so you're wondering what happens, you build a landfill at this area.
Correct, neighborhoods,
So
parks.
currently there's no neighborhood there.
Right, but Laredo's growing, so my question
Yeah, so this is
the area.
Okay, hold on. So the question is plans for future development around the area. Do you know anything about that?
So when you create and invest in a location, money, for example, if you did something in Laredo, a school or a Walmart, people develop around it. Same kind of situation happens here. So you build a landfill and other development will occur around it. There's very good examples like in the city of Atlanta, where you can see industrial developments around landfills from worldwide companies that are looking to develop and create industrial park sites to create jobs and an economic impact for the community, which ultimately will generate what you want.
Right, schools, things like that. I just don't see it next to a landfill. I personally wouldn't want to send my kids to a school that's next to a landfill. That's my personal...
Well, now I would invite you to come up during the comment period to make those statements.
Another quick question.
Sure.
Have you searched any other areas besides Laredo that where you would want to build this? I mean, I see your reasoning, but I mean...
The reasoning is...
Hold on. Wrap up your question.
Yes, another area besides Laredo, possibilities that you looked into?
No, because this is site-specific to the anomaly that exists on the Pescadito Ranch and the proximity to the railroad.
All right, thank you. Yes, ma'am.
My question is, I currently live about approximately 1.5 miles of the city landfill. And I think putting a landfill approximately 20 miles away could help. I assume the health risks are much less given the distance.
I'm sorry, could you ask that question again?
I currently live approximately 1.5 miles of the city landfill. And then putting a landfill approximately 20 miles away could help. I assume the health risks are much less given the distance.
So if staff, if you could speak to, I mean, what do you look at when you're reviewing an application with respect to health impacts?
Are you suggesting from where you currently live? 20 miles from where you currently live?
Yes.
One could assume so if you live 20 miles from a landfill versus a mile and a half.
So the health risk would be for the people living close by less, or about the same?
You could assume so. Our rules wouldn't actually look at that, but yeah. You could assume, someone reasonably could assume that there's less impact for someone that's 20 miles away from landfill versus a mile and a half. But that's not in our rules.
Thank you. Yes, ma'am.
Hi, good evening. I generally support the concept of this, but what I hear from others is, why do we need another landfill?
I don't think that's, yeah, the TCEQ, when we're looking at reviewing an application, we review the application on its own merits. I don't know, is there anything that y'all can say about, I guess, the necessity for another landfill?
I think from our perspective, you know, we're disappointed that the City of Laredo landfill got an application approved to extend its life by 16 years. We think it's a process that should wind down and wrap up. I think there's a possibility for Ponderosa and Pescadito to coexist. It would offer two private ventures that would compete with themselves and offer the best service and at the cheapest rate for our community. So why the need for two? Just straight business. Who would want a monopoly of one particular service, and who would not want the city to be involved with one private company but multiples? And I think that's the right good answer for you.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. Yes, ma'am.
I just wanted to have a point of reference to clarify. I know we've discussed the toxic part of it, but I just wanted to check that this is still true. According to the TCEQ, or the Texas Administrative Code, Class 1 waste is defined as any industrial solid waste or mixture of industrial solid wastes, which because of its concentration or physical or chemical characteristics is toxic, corrosive, flammable, a strong sensitizer or irritant, a generator of sudden pressure by decomposition, heat, or other means, or may pose a substantial present or potential danger to human health or the environment. Class 1 wastes can contain over 140 toxic, corrosive, flammable, or other chemicals that may pose a substantial present or potential danger to human health or the environment. So I don't think it's fair to compare the seeds in an apple to Class 1 industrial waste. Very...
Okay, thank you. So is your question, is that still the rule currently?
Is that true? Is
that the rule?
Yes.
Staff, is that the current TCEQ rule?
Yes, I believe that is the rule. I think at the end of it, it says, if not properly handled.
Correct.
I believe that's in there. So
Correct.
The key is the proper handling of that material. It would not be such an extreme threat to human health or the environment if it were properly handled.
But it does contain over 140 toxic, corrosive, flammable, or other chemicals. Class 1 industrial waste.
At least that many. They're all concentration driven. And what I was trying to explain earlier, we have a hazardous waste classification which has higher concentrations of those same chemical compounds, and then the Class 1 non-hazardous has lower concentrations of those chemical compounds.
Right. So if we're bringing in 1 million tons, would that concentration be significant?
I'm not sure where the 1 million tons came from, but
in the application.
I believe the application has said they estimate they may take 1 million tons a year. They've also, in the application, stated they cannot take more than 20% of that as Class 1 industrial waste.
Is that something that they are legally bound
Yes.
to do? So it would be 20% of legally bound to only take 20%. So 200,000 tons of Class 1 industrial waste at least. So in that concentration, is it, I mean, I find it difficult to accept that that wouldn't pose a risk having those toxic chemicals in that concentration.
Well, certainly, and again, you're welcome to come up during the comment period and state those concerns for the record. I don't want to spend a whole lot of time debating. Obviously, there are folks who have differences of opinion with regard to what is toxic and what is not toxic. I feel like.
But it's very specific. I don't think it's very specific, but.
Okay. Well. And you've already asked a handful of questions, and we still have some folks who are lined up behind you. Is there anything further that Dwight or?
Well, the landfill does have design considerations. It has a liner system with clay and a geomembrane. It has a groundwater monitoring system around it, and it has procedures for actually handling these wastes.
Okay.
Okay, thank you. We need to move on.
One more about the water. Because
okay, real quick.
That their water wasn't potable, but in the ground or in the application it states that the Laredo aquifer underlies the Yegua Jackson, which is beneath the site. And this aquifer is an important part of Webb County, for it is capable of producing significant quantities of fresh water, particularly for the sandier lower portion of the Laredo Formation. The Laredo aquifer provides a portion of Laredo's water supply and has been the subject of aquifer storage and recovery research. So where is it, and this is all from the application, so how is that not going to affect, or how is that water not potable?
What safeguards are in place to protect what groundwater may be present? Go for it.
The Laredo aquifer is here and ends long before you get to the site. And so the Laredo Formation dips beneath the site, but by the time it gets to the site, the water is so saline that it cannot be used. So it is not used. The wells in the area are drilled to the base of the Yegua Formation.
All right,
and
thank you.
About
thank
1,200 feet below the site.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I am Francisco Javier Estrada, and the reason I'm here, I'm not pro
Hold on.
Yes?
All right, thank you, everybody. Go ahead.
All right. The reason I'm here, I'm not pro or against this project, because I know that this toxic waste was created by our demand on industrial products. My question is, and I believe it's very important for you to hear, is that have you considered using a biologist to have some bacteria that will decay this toxic waste into a less harmful material, substance? Like, for instance, I know that the Titanic is being eaten by bacteria that is decaying this big ship. And it's destroying it. They're eating this material. Have you ever considered using a biologist to engineer a bacteria that will eat this toxic waste? That is my question.
Okay, so that's interesting. I guess the question for TCEQ is whether we can dictate to the applicant how to handle, or, I mean, the applicant, in their application, they state this is what they're going to do. We don't go back to them and. All right. So do you have anything that you can say as far as alternative methods for handling the waste or disposing of it?
Really, that's a manufacturer's issue, that how they handle their waste. If they, if it was economically feasible to do that, then that would certainly make sense for them to do it. So I think that's a question for industry and not for the landfill.
Yeah, I think what you're suggesting is an alternative method for disposing of the waste or for treating the waste.
Making biodegrade this material. Because this material is not going to disappear unless you hire David Copperfield to make it disappear. It will not disappear. It will go here or somewhere else.
David Copperfield's not going to come work for the TCEQ.
Yeah, okay, that's what I mean. So have you ever thought of having some bacteria or something, how to get rid of this waste?
Okay. And again, those are great comments to bring up during the comment period that we're going to get to here in just a minute. But again, the TCEQ evaluates the application that's been made by the applicant. I don't think that we necessarily dictate to them, hey, there's these alternative methods that might be out there that you should do some research or investigate.
Yeah. I would like to add, just real quick, we are going to be using sustainable and reasonable methods on doing everything we can to limit what we truly have to landfill. But we did not create the waste. We are just a receptacle, and we're offering an alternative for all humans to have a location where we can install what we all created. We will all have a hand in the waste. I agree with you, sir. Thank you for your comment.
Thank you. Yes, sir.
Hi, good evening. I'd like to read something very brief just to set up my question. This right here is a legal document from A&B Cattle Company in exchange for dismissing an easement or settlement. Ana Galo is requesting a payday from Carlos Benavides of 3.5% annual gross revenue and $200,000 in attorney fees and $800,000 for the 59th road easement. So essentially, she's looking for money. So my question is, if the opposition is fake, are any of the negative public comments valid?
I'm sorry, could you ask that question again?
I'm saying, if the opposition is fake, are any of the negative public comments valid?
I think Anthony's, in terms of with respect to public comment.
Well, let me just say that the TCEQ is going to evaluate all the public comments, and with respect to their validity, I'm sure there are some very valid comments that are being made tonight and that have been submitted already, and we're going to be looking at all of those comments. In terms of any type of settlement between protestants and the applicant, that's not something that the TCEQ is involved in at all.
Right. I'm just saying, is this more about a settlement, or are we really talking about environmental risks?
From the TCEQ's perspective, we're required by law to review the application, make sure it's going to be safe for human health and the environment. I think, as Anthony mentioned, if there are third-party agreements that are taking place, that's not really something the TCEQ is going to be involved in.
Okay.
All right. Thank you. Yes, sir.
Good afternoon. My question is, you say that there's no immediate threat for the people living close to this dump site where it's going to be located. But my question is, would you declare yourself bankrupt if people start getting sick and you get sued?
Anthony, what kind of, is there, oh, thank you. Thank you. Is there financial assurance or anything that's required for this type of application?
Yes, financial assurance is required in the event that the applicant would go bankrupt. There's some financial backup.
Okay.
Yeah, because people start getting sick and then the owner just declares himself bankrupt and just let the people die.
Okay, so as Anthony mentioned, there is financial assurance that's required as part of the application.
Okay.
I'd also like to add that our family was part of the 4 founding fathers of this community, and we're going to be here when this community is at its end. So we will be here indefinitely.
Yeah, because my plan is to retire in a year and a half and live there at Ranchito Las Lomas.
Good, me too. We'll be neighbors.
All right.
Yeah, okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, ma'am.
Hi. I just have a question. Could you describe what type of, what is Class 1 waste? Because you name it as Class 1, but we're not being told what is exactly Class 1 waste.
That's a good question. What are some examples of Class 1 waste?
Some types could be wastewater treatment sludge from an industrial process. They could be blasting media, like sandblasting media that takes metals off of a piece of metal. That could have the metals could cause it to be Class 1. Could be other processed sludges.
Is there somewhere that somebody could go and look at that list if they wanted to? Is it available? Is it like in our rules or?
Yeah, because all the wastes that are being...
We really don't have a specific list of listed Class 1 industrial waste.
Or all classes, because I think as the public we deserve to know what is Class 1 waste. As people, TCEQ can say, and you guys know what you're talking about, but the people, I don't know what any of that waste is.
Sure. Is there anything else we can say about? Yeah, it's something to bring up during the comment period as well, is that you have that concern about what exactly is Class 1 waste. And what it'll do is it'll give TCEQ staff an opportunity to go back, do some research, and provide perhaps a more exhaustive response in the response to comments document that they'll do later on in the process.
And I have one more question.
Sure.
Can TCEQ promise 100%, like 0% risk management with this project, or can this project present that? Because I know working, there's no such thing as 0% risk.
Well, and I think you kind of answered the question there. We get asked that question at just about every public meeting that we conduct across the state of Texas. And typically the answer that I hear both from the applicant and from TCEQ is, unfortunately, there are no guarantees. But the TCEQ by law is required, again, to review each application to make sure it'll be protective of human health and the environment. But obviously there's always just, you wouldn't want to guarantee because there's always something, some act of God or what have you that could occur. So, but again, that's what the TCEQ is charged with, is ensuring that it's going to be protective of human health and the environment.
Yeah, because the theory of safety is wonderful. Safety culture is a wonderful thing, but, you know, we're humans.
Sure.
Things happen.
Thank you. Thank you. Yes, sir.
Yes, my question is, there is a facility in Austin, Texas, I believe it's TDS. How similar is this project to that one?
Do you know the question was, there's a facility in Austin, TDSL. Do you know anything about that facility? The question was, how is this project similar to the project in Austin?
The TDS facility is a fully integrated facility. They have all sorts of processes for recycling, reuse, different types of management methods for the materials they received. And this facility has looked at that and has determined that that's what Carlos has decided, that's what he wants to provide. He's got some opportunities that the site in Austin does not have. So even though he's going to model what he's doing after that facility, he's got some things that he can do that that facility does not. But that is a very similar facility, very similar in site. They've both got very good clay, very protective. Groundwater is deep, so in that respect, they're very similar.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. We have been taking questions now for about 45 minutes. I'd like to make the gentleman standing in the back wearing the tie, I think he's third back, to be the last person that we take questions from, because we do have 53 people who have signed up to give comments, and I want to make sure that we leave plenty of time for those folks as well. Please go ahead.
I am one of the residents in Ranchito Las Lomas, so of course our concern is really great because this is the area that would be affected, not so much the city, but in that area. My question to you is, I have some understanding of risk management, and I know that everything, no matter how much your T's are crossed and your I's are dotted, and you talk and you reference proper management, there's always a potential for risk. All we have heard are your pros and how it's not risk, a hazardous risk. But if we should happen to have any misfalls, what are the potential risks that we would be faced with?
So I think I understand the question to be, what are the potential risks associated with the project? I think I could start off maybe by inviting Jaime Garza. He didn't know I was going to do this to him, but Jaime works in the regional office. If you wouldn't mind just talking about if somebody sees something, what do they do? Well, anyway, go ahead.
All right, thank you. We're here with the local regional office of the TCEQ. And what we would be responsible for, if there is any concerns or even any potential for concerns, we would get that call into our office, and then we would send out an investigator to conduct a compliance investigation. We have several things that we do. We can test groundwater, we can test air, and then we can also test any systems within the landfill. So those are some of the measures that we take if there's any concerns should the landfill be operating.
You're talking about measures that are taken. My question is, what are the potential risks that we would face as far as health hazards or anything that would be of a concern? That's what we need to know.
Right. Well, and I think that's harder to speculate on because it's going to depend ultimately on the type of waste that's being accepted and how it's being managed. But I think it's probably too difficult to just speculate as to what all the risk would be. I know that, again, the TCEQ is evaluating the permit to make sure it's protective of human health and the environment, but getting specifically to what the specific risk might be is probably going to be too difficult.
But Rancho Viejo does have to comply by EPA guidelines sponsored by the TCEQ, so there is actual written form on how we accept, the type we accept, and how we impound. and how we maintain that facility.
So my understanding is that you are going into this blindly, not really knowing what would be expected in a potential.
No, on the contrary, we're not blind at all. And if you'll go back to our board back there, you can see the investigative report. We are going wide-eyed through multiple levels of scrutiny, locally, statewide, and nationally. And it's extremely hard to get a permit from the TCEQ. In fact, I don't recall during our process, other than the city of Laredo, that they've offered much in the way of new projects in the state of Texas.
One last question, if I may. How much of an increase of a risk would we have as to what we have now, as far, because you referenced that any material, any trash material, whatever, can get to be a potential toxic material. So how would this, as far as...
That's a great question, and I don't know if some of you all know, I mean, I was involved in the Camino Columbia Toll Road project, and through that process and that project, we learned of transportation. And in transportation, and the city, you can go get this information, public records request, there's at least 5 shipments of the most hazardous material that have been crossing our border since the 80s, both southbound and northbound. So this facility is not going to drive the movement of waste, or hazardous, toxic, or otherwise. This facility is only a receptacle that's created for all of us to use, locally and regionally.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, sir.
Buenas tardes. Perdonen que hable español.
Pull up the microphone, please.
Perdonen que hable español, pero tú muy escaso del inglés, pero lo más sencillo que tenemos nosotros, los del que vivimos ahí por debajo del puente, enseguida del puente 359.
Go ahead.
Ya fue. No tengo experiencia para ser político. Bueno, vengo en representación del barrio aquí del 3 Points, y que nosotros llamamos ese lugar como el Pozo del Diablo. Porque cuando llueve, la naturaleza no tiene palabra. Si llueve bastante, se fluye el líquido, y cuando nosotros estamos ahí por la piedra china, el agua sube. Y si le pusimos el Pozo del Diablo es porque rezamos y rezamos, y el agua sube, sube, sube. Y es que la naturaleza le vale, ¿entiende? Y si llega a ese tóxico, nos va a afectar a nuestras residencias, y aparte de las residencias, como deportista, nos va a afectar los campos que tenemos ahí que van antes de llegar a la rueda del Chacón. ¿Me entiende? Suponga que se pase y que no nos afecte a nosotros, pero sí puede afectar a los campos también, donde van niños y adultos. Y el problema es, ¿saben lo que es la naturaleza? Si se llega a llegar toda el agua adentro, fluye el agua para afuera, ¿qué van a hacer ustedes? Nosotros los mexicanos y los que estamos ahí no entendemos de demandas. Nosotros no demandamos a nadie. Nosotros tomamos acciones. Es acción lo que tomamos nosotros. No quería afectarlos a ustedes de esta manera, pero si ustedes con su proyecto nos afectan a nosotros...
Okay, thank you. We can't hear. Thank you.
Lo que está comentando usted es una cosa y una buena pregunta, pero lo que le quiero referir, este proyecto no va a impactar a los 3 puntos, a 3 points. No conecta a ese lugar.
¿A nosotros?
No conecta.
Bueno, déjeme decirle a mi gente que no nos tenemos que preocupar por nosotros de eso, pero la naturaleza es la naturaleza.
No estamos de acuerdo, y esa es la razón por qué el lugar y el sitio donde vamos a construir este relleno, este tiradero, es el lugar específico, porque no hay esa conexión a arroyos que conectan al Río Grande, porque van a estar manejados tocante de los bordos y la construcción de presas para controlar esa agua, para que no haya ningún flujo de agua de fuera del lugar. Todo va a estar contenido, y no como existe el tiradero hoy de Laredo. Nuestra propiedad es el tiradero, son 600 acres entre medio de 1100 acres que se van a controlar. Y esa es la diferencia que hemos hecho en este proyecto. No nomás es conectado, sino a un lugarcito, un sitio pequeño. Y esa es la diferencia de este proyecto que lo que tiene la ciudad o lo que está promovido por lo de Pueblo Rosa, que es el otro tiradero. Esa es la diferencia. Tenemos un lugar y un sitio especial para contener todo lo que vamos a desechar.
Muy bien, entonces adelante, por mí no hay problema. El problema es mi comunidad que estamos nosotros. Gracias.
Thank you. Yes, sir.
Yes, my question is fairly forward to Mr. Benavides. Who is going to run your facility if it is permitted and you do construction and start accepting waste? The second part of that question would be for TCEQ. How difficult is it for someone to become a MSWA licensed operator in the state of Texas?
Okay, so there are two questions there. We'll take them one at a time.
So we have not made a decision business-wise as to who will be the operator. For the last couple of years, we've had industry companies that have approached us on possibly buying, acquiring, joint venturing, or operating our facility. We are working and visiting with our ownership as to our potential options, but ultimately we will be contracting with the most sophisticated people in the industry.
All right, so the second part of the question was how difficult is it to become a licensed operator, or are there any rules or what have you?
Class A operators have to go through a classroom period. I don't know exactly how long that is, and they do have to pass a written test. I know that.
Yes, sir, but is there also a provision for a number of years of having solid waste experience before you can even be considered to take that test?
I believe it's 4 years as a, say, a Class B or a C operator.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. So we do need to go on to the last part of the meeting. Let's make the gentleman in the lime green the last person to ask questions, and then we are going to take a break and move on to formal comments. Yes, ma'am.
I am concerned for the children's future.
Hold on a second. Again, I'm hearing a lot of chatter from the back. If you wouldn't mind, please wrap up your conversations. We need to be able to hear up here. Go ahead.
Okay, I'm concerned for our children's future, especially since I know that Newman Elementary, right now they have the problem they can't drink water from the fountain. It has to be bought because there was toxics back in the 60s and it's contaminated. So how can you assure us that the air, wind, land won't be contaminated when the wind blows, comes to the people and environment? My husband died inspecting, well, he photographed containers. Just the vapors killed him within 1 month. Just the vapors. And he just photographed the containers. He was a federal agent in 2009. It's been 7 years. And I did the whistleblower to OSHA, by the way. I have all the letters. My attorney let me go.
Okay, let's go ahead and address your question then.
Yes.
What sort of provisions, if any, for air emissions or for material blowing off of the landfill, if any? Are they required to get an air permit or?
As far as the industrial waste, I believe most of that would have to come in sealed containers, either in a truck that's got a cover on it or in an actual tank. When it's brought in, it's either directly put in the landfill and covered,
right,
or they could, if it was a liquid, solidify it with some solidification material and then put it directly into the landfill.
But I'm sure.
Hold on, go ahead.
Each day that landfill where they're putting the waste is covered with soil to help prevent any of the waste from getting into the air.
Well, these containers were covered, and the vapors still killed my husband within 1 month when he breathed all those vapors. They're extreme poisons.
And I think that's, again, a good example of something to bring up during the comment period.
And I'm just concerned for our children's future because today is the future for the.
No, and it's a good question, ma'am, and my condolences for your loss. But that's what we're trying to get away from. Unfortunately, our forefathers, when they were developing this community and other communities, decided to build landfills all over this community. The current health department is a landfill. The location between the Yukon restaurant and the F Bar is a landfill, and all those homes back there. Places on the Mines Road are landfills. The parking lot of the mall is a landfill. And what we're trying to accomplish is that growth of that type will never exist around humans where they live and play. And we're trying to do it in a responsible manner. And obviously, it'll be far beyond our lifetimes into my grandchildren's lifetime. And those are the people that are going to be working with the best technical folks to deliver the best service for this community.
All right, thank you. Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. My name is John Cardwell.
You can go ahead and pull that up some more so you don't have to lean over. There you go.
Thank you. I have a question for Mr. Benavides. Mr. Benavides, has your project filed an application for and received a development permit from Webb County under the flood damage prevention order?
And we received a permit?
A development permit from Webb County under the flood damage prevention order of Webb County.
I don't know, I'd have to refer that to my attorneys, and I think that you can make that as a comment in the next segment of the meeting. We have done everything necessary to get through the process and where we are today with the TCEQ.
My question is, do you have that permit?
Again, I'd have to refer to legal. You can pass it off to anybody you want.
I think from the TCEQ's perspective, we're looking at the permit application that they made to us. If there's some other authorization, and correct me if I'm wrong, Anthony, but if there's some other authorization that they need either at the county level or at the city level, then it's incumbent upon the applicant to secure that. But again, we're looking at...
That's why I'm asking the applicant.
Okay, but tonight's meeting is on the state permit for the municipal solid waste permit.
Well, until about 45 minutes ago, the TCEQ said that they had examined this application and it was technically complete.
Brad, if I could address that comment. We have language, I think, as you know, in our permit. It's fairly boilerplate language, which says that the applicant is responsible for obtaining all other necessary authorizations. So, and as I discussed earlier, at this point it's not technically complete. But even if it were technically complete, that would not relieve them of their obligation to obtain all other necessary permits. They can be technically complete under our rules, but still have to obtain other necessary authorizations before being able to operate.
But if your rules and your checklist to be technically complete require them to have all local development permits and they don't have it, then they're not technically complete.
Our rules don't require them to have all those. For example, sometimes an applicant will need to get a 404 permit from the Corps of Engineers. We'll issue a permit, but we'll have the language contingent in our permit that says, you still need to get all other permits, including a Corps 404 permit. It might be technically complete in terms of our review, but they would still need to obtain other authorizations.
So you don't believe that your rules require them to get all local permits to be deemed?
I believe that the permit requires that, yes.
That you don't believe the application requires that?
The application and the permit do. What I'm saying is that sometimes there will be outstanding local permits that they need to get that are outside our purview.
And I've also heard Anthony say that at this point they're not considering the application to be technically complete at the agency.
45 minutes ago and before, it was deemed technically complete. Rule 330.63C2DDII requires the owner or operator of a proposed municipal solid waste facility to submit a floodplain development permit from a county having jurisdiction over the proposed improvements. Has that been looked at by the TCEQ? The applicant doesn't know whether he has it.
We submitted our Clomer application to Webb County. They signed off on it, approved it. We submitted it to FEMA, and it's been approved there as well.
And again, tonight,
do you have development permits required?
Again, tonight is not the evidentiary proceeding, and I feel like we're kind of crossing over to that territory.
Thank you
I would again invite you to come up during the comment period and make that part of the record.
Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. Yes, sir.
Buenas noches. Yo trabajo en una empresa ambiental de energía renovable, celdas solares. Estamos nosotros. Buenas, sí. Nosotros formamos parte de una empresa de energía renovable. Trabajamos los que son las celdas solares y estamos interesados en lo que viene siendo el medio ambiente, ya no al futuro, sino ahora. Entonces, quisiera preguntar, toda la basura, todo lo que van a tirar, ¿qué capacidad de reciclaje van a tener? O sea, ¿qué es lo que van a hacer con eso? ¿Cómo va a trabajar?
So I understood the question to be recycling at the facility, how is it going to be handled, and what sort of recycling might be taking place?
Lo que se va a construir aquí va a ser lo más técnico y lo más moderno que existe. Vamos a crear lo que se refiere en Austin de un MRF, que es un lugar donde se puede reciclar, hacer reusos socialmente para no tirar todo, tener oportunidades de reciclar todo lo que es posible. Y vamos a estar, porque tenemos suficiente terreno, como le estaba comentando el señor más temprano, que esa es la ventaja que tenemos. Tenemos la oportunidad de hacer mucho en este terreno y con ese espacio y como no hay vivienda cerca, va a haber oportunidad de hacer esas cosas y hacer movimientos. También por los últimos 2 años casi hemos hablado con la oficina de la ciudad, con el city manager Olivares, y ellos están de acuerdo de reconstruir y hacer un lugar donde existe el tiradero, el relleno hoy, para revivir ese lugar y utilizar ese lugar para el público.
Okay, gracias.
All right, thank you. So at this time, we're going to go ahead and take a break, quick break. Okay, I've been informed this is the former county judge of Laredo, so we'll give him the courtesy of asking a question real quick. Go ahead.
My question is concerning the second person that spoke here about an hour or so ago for the benefit of Mr. Benavides and the benefit of all the people that are here, and you're a branch of the state government. Did you public your public notice correctly? Because the next phase is going to be for the record. And if you didn't post correctly, then this meeting is not right for anyone, for any of the parties.
And I think Anthony talked about that at the beginning of the meeting, that we felt like it was important to go ahead and hold the public meeting, and that, again, I guess another notice at some point will be issued that will invite further comment on the supplemental application or the supplement that we received. Anyway, Anthony, go ahead.
Right, and I just want to emphasize something, and that is, tonight is not the last night that you can submit public comments. We're going to continue to take public comments.
That is correct. The public comments are over.
No, they're not.
No, the next time that you come, they're for the record.
They're for the record tonight also.
And you're not complying with the state law? Then this meeting is not right.
I do think the public meeting was properly noticed, and we are going to have a formal comment period here in just a couple of minutes. Once we have a chance to take a break, we'll start taking comments. The comments that we get during the comment period tonight will be subject to being reviewed by the agency, just like all the other comments that we received at this point.
Regardless, if you're an agency of the state, you need to have a correct public notice,
all right,
regardless of what you say.
I agree.
Judge,
Thank you.
I don't think there's been action as to that.
Thank you. All right. Do you have just one question? Come on up.
I just have one question. How is this done be beneficial for us? I'm sorry?
The question was, how is the landfill going to be beneficial for the community?
The benefit to the community is at multiple levels. First, currently, there's not a landfill like this project that can accept waste that's created here locally. For example, you probably eat at McDonald's once in your life, right? So McDonald's every week or every month has to haul grit and grease, which is the stuff that they use after they make our burgers, and they have to ship it to locations, landfills like the one outside of San Antonio on I-10 and 410, or places like in Houston or the Valley. We'll be offering that service to collect that. We'll also be able to offer collection services for the oil and gas industry. And that's probably one of the biggest generators of income in this community. again, it's a service that's not provided locally. And it's pretty unfair for us to not consider that we would want to do that, to be able to offer services to the community. Now, then it goes into deeper situations. We currently have a landfill that, potentially is in risk of being toxic on its own. We have negotiated and would like to work continuing with the city to put a closure element to that landfill and give the citizens of Laredo 2 opportunities to install waste at 2 private companies. Now, why is that important? Because you pay taxes and you want to get the maximum amount of service for the cheapest price. And by having private companies invest in that service, it will force those companies to compete. This is what this country was founded on. That competition will be good. It'll stimulate activity, therefore reduce your rates, hopefully reduce your taxes, and ultimately increase your service and the quality of service.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, I have it as 8:39. We're going to take a quick break. Please be back in your seats by 8:45, and we'll start the formal comment period. Thank you.